right. Welcome back, everybody, to another Retroactive Trio podcast. This is your patient zero, Zombie JLT1. Glad to be back after weeks and weeks of dealing with pneumonia. I am here along with the rest of the Retroactive Trio to bring you tonight's episode. So, with me as always is
Retro Ryan.
Chris from Big Family Gaming.
And tonight we have two special guests. The awesome and my supernatural bro, JoshxZeroify, and JChip Show himself. Welcome, guys.
Greetings.
Ohayou gozaimasu.
JChip throwing in that Japanese there. I like it. So let's go ahead and kick things off as we usually do. Guys, any interesting pickups, any interesting news that you guys want to share with us today?
I picked up Horizon Forbidden West. I picked up this is random, but full set of Burger King Lion King toys. Still new in the pack.
Was the Horizon game on Xbox?
No, PS4. That's exclusive
Oh, okay.
series. Only that's that's PlayStation only series. The Horizon games.
All right, my bad.
No, it's all right.
It's all good.
That's one of the system sellers along with God of War. You know, that's one of their exclusives. It's big. Yeah, I just always wanted those Lion King toys. I found them for a good price, like 20 something bucks. So
you were talking like the ones that came out right when the movie came out, like the movie promos, the tie-ins?
The Burger King toys, so they were like all the characters, like from Simba to Mickey to Pumbaa and Timon, all of it. Like, yeah, every character from the movie. And like some have like action features, some like move on wheels, like, you know, the typical Burger King, McDonald's movie tie-in toys. I think in the 90s, the Burger King had a lot of the Disney ones. I think they did Aladdin too.
Yeah. Yeah, McDonald's had the...
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Zombie.
What's up? Uh-oh. I think we lost audio for a moment here.
Yep,
You're
there was a
back.
crash.
There
You're
we
back.
go.
You're good.
All right. God bless technology. And God bless whatever knocked over my subwoofer.
Oops.
Well, you guys...
You are just not having a good night, are you?
No, I'm not. First night back, and I'm already having technical... Jeez, stuff keeps falling.
Okay, you all are my witness. This ghost has nothing to do with the stuff that's happening at his place.
All right. Well, me personally, I haven't had a chance to take pics of some of the stuff that I recently picked up. I will go ahead and do so. Probably after the show. I'll post it in my Discord as we usually do. But I'm just gonna jump on. Excuse me here. If it lets me. Where is So do I fill the screen? Boom! There we go. See, folks, I'm not dead. I'm still here. I do want to take a quick opportunity while I'm on camera to kind of show some of the picks I got recently, if I can find them. Lord knows I probably dropped them all, but yeah, looks like I did. Anyway, so if you guys follow me on Twitter and on Instagram, you guys might have seen some of the photos I posted today. I've actually been able to go outdoors again. so it's nice to actually be off bed rest. I do have a few games and a few cool pickups from a local video game store that I've been starting to frequent before I got sick. Um, but I spent some time with some really great friends of mine today, and hopefully they're watching right now because I did tell them that I was going to be doing a podcast tonight. But what I really want to show off today is this awesome artwork that I got from a very talented artist. Might seem a little morbid, but I don't care because you guys all know that I love my horror. And it's this really cool original art of Dot brandishing a knife.
Oh, dude, that is so sweet.
Very nice kitchen cleaver there.
Right. And what's funny is we started talking about, if we add stuff, like we could put Dot holding Yakko's head behind her, Wacko dead over here, Dr. Scratch and Sniff hanging in the corner. We just started talking about all these random cool ideas to do with this piece, but she gave this to me personally today. So shout out to the talented artist. I hope you are watching. And of course, your awesome family that we spent time with today. I hope all of you are watching and enjoying. But other than that, I finally picked up another complete in box game after months and months of searching, and a few other knickknacks. So I'll take pictures of those and post them on my Discord. But yeah, I just wanted to take the time to shout out the very talented artist who made this for me. And to shout out my special friends who are hopefully watching right now. So, yeah. Let me get my ugly mug off the camera. If I can remember where it is. Oop. There we go. That's what happens when you have too many sources in OBS. You get lost in them.
Don't you have a stream deck?
I do.
There's you could literally set the camera, face cam and off on that stream deck.
I know. I have not had time to mess with it. So in regards to that, I will take that hit.
Don't feel bad. I'm looking at getting one myself. Not to be on stream, but for other reasons.
There we go. Josh has officially slain me again on YouTube.
I don't slay anybody. I just pass through. You should know this.
Well, there we go. Now I have been shamed because I couldn't figure out my.
You are just out to get me on a negative light, aren't you?
No. It does suck though. As soon as I got comfortable with the stream deck, I got sick. So.
No worries.
Yeah.
That sounds about right.
It does.
I did have some pickups I'll mention after BFG drops his, if he has any.
Well, and mine's real quick. I haven't had too many, and just since the last podcast, about the only thing I've actually picked up. It was kind of hyped. The Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga. I was able to grab a PS4 limited edition, the collector's big box that has the Lego figure in it. I was very lucky. The Walmart I walked into, that was the only one they had on the shelf, so I grabbed it. That was probably 3 weeks ago, but I haven't had any other pickups or anything. So, but that's the latest and the biggest one. I was going to stream it on May the 4th for the Star Wars Day ship, but work got in the way. Wasn't able to do it, but I've seen other people stream it. It looks good. I want to get to it. I just haven't had a chance, but yeah, I was very lucky to get a big box of that.
Nice.
I found out about that way too damn late, and I wanted it too. I've already heard kind of pro and con about the game and about the whole, like, it lets you choose which saga you want to start with and all that. So, that really doesn't bother me. I don't like the fact that the new trilogy's on there, but that's just me. But I was trying to get a hold of that myself because I wanted the complete copy and the little Lego figure. So
I did get some pickups. I finally got to go into another town. Some friends of mine, we went up to it. I mentioned it in Zombie Stream why I will never go back to that place.
right.
They have a second location in another town. Like, so that's where Mom and Pa went. But we managed to. I took a picture of the games, but I didn't take a picture of like the movies or the like unofficial D&D things Monkey picked up. But got a really surprisingly pristine copy of Nobunaga's Ambition for NES. They sold literally at the eBay cost. We picked up Willow, which was surprisingly clean, but I was very disappointed and upset because they had a copy of Monster Party, and I've been trying to get that. They wanted like $20-something, and it was, I don't understand how you could have 3 different shades of gray on a single cart of a pristine sticker. But a pristine sticker, and then the exposed chip looks dirty as hell. And I'm like going, what the hell was this in?
Right.
It's like, and one thought you're thinking, well, I know a gaming beautician, but even he's probably going to come back to me like, I'm not a miracle worker. You have wasted your money. This is now something you mount on the wall like you killed it.
I mean, if I could swap the shells, I would totally. But yeah,
Monster Party's become recently a very popular game. All of a sudden,
yes.
Like it's recently shot up into the 20 mark above. It's like mid-20s right now for a good copy.
I knew it was going to happen eventually. See, folks, this is what I was saying early on in my channel. This game does not get enough credit. It does not get enough good recognition. It should be appreciated for what it is. So if it's finally happening, awesome. Because that game is highly underappreciated.
It is. The other thing I recently got, which was apparently an inheritance gift, that's how it was labeled to me, was my first complete selection modification Kamen Rider belt for Kamen Rider
cool.
Zero Nose. Those things are badass, but damn. They still do not fit your average American waist. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the features. It fits adult waist. I'm like, the hell you say?
It kind of reminds me of what the comic book guy says in one of the Simpsons episodes when he returns. He tries to return some kind of utility belt, and he's sitting there and he goes,
"Oh, I remember that episode.
I find their prices highly illogical, as this is not the size of an average Trekkie belt," or something like that. Kind of hinting that fans are not that small.
Oh yeah. But yeah, eventually I'll take pictures of it. I haven't even had a chance to like really play with it and see everything it can do. I just like opened the box, make sure it was real. Go ahead.
That guy is not that small. The comic book guy, he is not.
No. But these days he is very much. If you go to comic conventions or most comic shops, he is about a token. You will see one of those, either really good friends with the owner that's running the joint, or a regular. Or the gentleman himself. I've seen the spectrum.
Right. JChip, you got any recent pickups? Any news you want to share? Unless you're not done, Josh. Sorry, I should.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, I picked up a few things. I'm a huge Resident Evil fan. It's my favorite franchise ever. And recently I picked up Resident Evil Code Veronica X on the GameCube.
Nice.
And if you know anything about that particular game, it's so incredibly expensive on the GameCube. I don't even know why, but I got it for a really good price. And yeah, I'm just happy to have it. I'm one game away from completing every single Resident Evil game on the GameCube.
Wow.
Nice.
Congrats.
Nice.
That is impressive, bro. I don't even have any on the GameCube. And I love that franchise.
Yeah, and the only one I'm missing is Resident Evil 4, which is a pretty easy task.
Are you going for the one with the chainsaw controller or just the regular version?
I just want the games. I don't care about the extra stuff.
I don't know, that chainsaw controller and its special case are pretty badass.
Right? I should have got one of those when I had the damn chance.
I mean,
Ditto, but it would have been. It's literally designed to just be a display piece. It's not practical to play with at all.
They got a
No.
Wii gun that's practical.
though I do see some kind of joy in playing like kiddie games like Mario Sunshine and Kirby Air Ride with the chainsaw controller.
You
Right.
seen the Wii gun with the knife?
Is it like
You guys seen the?
it's an attachment, or is it like a separate?
It came with one of the games. I forget which one. But there's definitely they made.
If it's on the Wii, it's
yeah.
It's either Dark Side Chronicle or Umbrella Chronicle.
Umbrella
Both of them
Chronicles.
came with a gun.
Yeah. Well, shoot, I'm gonna have to recheck the archive then.
Yeah. It doesn't go for too much. I mean, maybe $40-$50. More than it used to go for, but
Sweet. All right.
And
well,
the other thing I picked up was a manga called Kaiju Number 8, and it was kind of weird because I found it at Walmart, and my Walmart has like I've never seen manga on my Walmart, so it was like a guaranteed pickup. And I haven't read it, but from what I like skimmed through, it seems like Power Rangers, but they turn into kaijus.
oh, badass.
That seems kind of cool.
That seems interesting.
Gotta like that Toku action.
Nice. I'll have to look into that myself because y'all know I'm a big kaiju fan. Love me some Godzilla, Gamera, even if he is for children.
Okay, the only like official gun I'm finding, like the Resident Evil blaster, is what they're tying it to, was for the Umbrella Chronicles. Is what that they're saying that was tied to. Well, one of them. And there's plenty of people who have kits, of course.
Fair enough.
Gotta run that gambit, but yeah. No, I did not really know about the Wii one. I'm gonna be the first to admit that one. But then again, about Wii is when I went away for Resident Evil for a while.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I mean, I almost passed on the GameCube when it first came out just because I wasn't seeing anything of interest, and then when they released the RE remake, I'm like, damn, now I have to get this system. And I kind of did the same thing with Dreamcast, but I was already enjoying Dreamcast games beforehand. But having Resident Evil Code Veronica appear on there was so random, but I'm like, yep, I'm going to get it now.
Let's be honest. Resident Evil was a huge draw for Dreamcast for an audience.
Absolutely. And the game, yeah, both of them. I just realized that Dreamcast and GameCube totally were ways to reel people in because everybody thought Nintendo was going to still keep going the way of kiddie stuff, and then boom, the remake hits the GameCube and we're all like, what? How did that happen?
Yeah.
So,
You know, there's still a part of me that, like, I don't know if you've seen the Resident Evil 4 reveal trailer at E3, but, like, it's like with the Hookman, and, like, my morbid curiosity just wonders what would have happened if we got that version of Resident Evil 4.
right. Well, we definitely should have a podcast episode dedicated to the RE series.
The Halloween special.
Oh, yeah.
Dun dun dun.
There we go.
Or is it Christmas special?
Either one. Either one.
Either one.
So, all right. Well, as you all know, today's topic is anime. And this might be a niche topic for some of you out there, for some of us here. But I think it's safe to say at some point we've been exposed to the anime culture one way or another. And although this is sort of a simplified image of kind of what modern anime looks like, I mean, I have a collage that's even way bigger than this. But this is just to kind of get us going with the topic and kind of highlight some of the more popular franchises that are either still around and relevant or have kind of come and gone over the years. But yeah, let's get the ball rolling. Let's jump into what we know about anime and kind of how far back does our fandom go, actually?
You know, you guys probably know a lot more about anime than me. All my knowledge is in the '90s, but what got me into it was Sci-Fi Channel Saturday Anime. That's where I first saw Akira. That's where I first saw Ghost in the Shell, Ninja Scroll, Wicked City, all the old classic cell drawn stuff. By the 2000s, I had moved on. Unfortunately, it didn't mean I don't love it anymore, but I just kind of moved on to other things like music and being in bands. But I was heavily into. I mean, I taped everything that was on there.
Right.
You know, on VHS. I timed it. Saturday Anime. I did not miss that on the Sci-Fi Channel. So that was my introduction.
And that's something that we're definitely gonna get into, because I think that was a huge breaking point for a lot of people. Now, some of us whose fandom goes back to the OG times, like right here, we've got some of the more recognizable titles from the '60s. You know, we got Astro Boy and Gigantor and 8-Man. Some of these I grew up watching in rerun.
Of course.
So,
But straight up right now, I can tell you two of them were heavily changed because they were part of World War II anti-American propaganda.
yep. And a lot of these got remakes towards the '80s. I know there was the new Gigantor that used to air on the Sci-Fi Channel. 8-Man, which is one of my favorites, got an OVA remake in the '80s, original video animation, I believe it is.
Yeah. It also has a really hard, I've seen only once ever, live action movie.
Yep. Which wasn't bad, but
I literally only saw it once, and that was on the Sci-Fi Channel. I've been like trying to chase that high for like years. Like, where the hell is it?
Right. So
did I imagine it?
with the anime, I don't want to say boom, because I feel like that was more in the '80s. With the anime exposure we got in the '60s, we kind of saw like these softer edged, well-rounded kind of artistic styles. Speed Racer, which unfortunately was not included in this image here, was another big title, another big one for the States.
I'm a huge Speed Racer fan. I love it. I love Speed Racer.
Oh yeah, Speed Racer is classic until you see the live action movie and it's like, aw.
Oh, the seizure inducing one. Yep.
But about the '60s hot take on this was when the exposure to go market to the West for recovery was, okay, let's re-franchise this a little bit, adjust it, draw money from the West over here. I mean, and what's funny is you don't realize how much technical, if you want to get highly technical here, Japanimation or anime exposure you really were getting growing up through like the '80s and stuff, even up to the '90s, until you like start deep diving. You're like, holy shit.
Right.
Like, I guarantee every person here has seen Transformers. Would never have thought it back then when you were a kid. Oh, this is from Japan. Nope. Never would have thought that. You would have thought, oh, this is an American animation. Nope. This was Japanese repackaged for Americans. Then there was...
Same thing with Voltron.
Yep, Voltron.
Voltron's 2 seasons are technically 2 different series altogether, and we came up with the name Voltron.
Let me just say, I feel bad for you guys that had to grow up with Voltron, because Go Lion is so much better.
I would agree.
Now that one I'm not gonna touch, because I've seen people get knifed for that, for saying such surprising things. I'm like, nope, I am not dying tonight over terminology of calling a robot something.
That's where you've got the extremists for sure.
Oh, dude, the Gundam verse when it first came out here, there was people actually dying over that shit, and I was like, nope, I'm a fan. I'm gonna keep my opinion to myself.
Check out
I think it was. I think we got one of the things we got to talk about too, though, is just how it stood out so much for being so much more raw and adult
Mm-hmm.
themed. And when we were growing up at that time, on Nickelodeon and tame cartoons, to see something like Akira like blew my mind. Just like
Oh yeah.
it was like Blade Runner put to, like, I think that was one of the reviews. Even they said it's like Blade Runner, put to animation, because you had all these parallels in there. You had like the ultra violence, but it was at the same time there was a plot there. It wasn't just action for action's sake. There was great dialogue amongst the characters in there. You could feel for Kaneda and Tetsuo, their relationship as friends, kind of the scrappy, dorky friend, and Kaneda, the cooler friend with his bike, and just and it was super long too. Like, I had never seen any animated. What's Akira, 3 hours long? I mean, it's tremendous. It's an amazing achievement for what they had to do to make that. And it just, for like, hitting like teen age, you want that. You want something more adult themed, and you felt cool watching it because maybe you weren't supposed to be watching something like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it made it cooler, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
because anime was starting to be more about um,
Pop culture,
pop culture,
rebellion.
and it was cartoons that even did more than what were deemed violent at the time. It pushed the envelope. It showed that animation can be more than just a kiddie thing. It can be an adult thing.
It's an adult art form and should be
Exactly.
appreciated.
Right.
And I kind of wanna go back to the point about the '60s anime, because I think for a while when anime was starting to get its thing, it didn't really get its identity until, I would argue, around the '80s, because there were a lot of '60s anime
Mhm.
kind of has a similar style to Disney and how that
yeah.
aesthetic was going on.
Right.
And
Yeah.
things didn't really change for a while until, I would honestly argue, maybe Rosa Versailles, that came out in '79.
Right. And so here we've got the 70s movement where, okay, now anime is being colorized. There's still kind of soft tones, but now they're starting to push the envelope and go for edgier things.
They're adapting manga or comics, graphic novels, whatever you want to call it, into things, and you start seeing Go Nagai's, which I see a lot of his work.
Oh, hell yeah.
Here,
Devilman!
bringing in adult themes. You still get people like the Ghibli, coming in. Then you just get other people's ideas like Lupin the Third. You start seeing this branching of, we're not going to just do readapt Japanese propaganda cartoons to be kid friendly or try to emulate Disney so much. Now we're going to try to grow and tap these markets and exposures. Like I said, Devilman, for instance, you read the manga and then you see even the OVA, which I think that's all it got for a while, and then eventually we get other adaptations.
Right.
Gore everywhere. Like, it was like literally an animated bukkake film.
Yep. And the funny thing is too is just, excuse me, just recently they put out the original TV series on DVD, and what is that, like a 40-year-old TV show at this point?
For which one are you talking?
Devilman.
Devilman has, if I last I checked, it had at least 3 or 4 different ones with like subtitles.
Yeah.
Like sub captions of what it is, like Devilman Crybaby or Devilman Armand or Armageddon. It was like, there were a few.
Right. But to get the actual, to get the original show complete, I mean, it took until just now.
A long time.
Yeah.
To get it west, because you had to have companies that were ballsy enough to be like, okay, we can get this by the censors because obviously there's a market. People are torrenting it. People are buying bootleg movies of it because they want to see it.
Right. Yeah. And that's another point that we'll definitely jump into as we get into the 80s and 90s anime boom. This concept of bootlegging, pirating,
Oh yeah,
you know.
because the prices were absurd. Suncoast. Do you guys remember Suncoast Video?
Oh,
Oh, I
What it
do
would
absolutely.
remember
cost?
it.
Oh my god,
Yeah.
$30 to
Sun-
I
$40
wasn't
a
around for
film.
that.
Tremendous amount of
I
money.
remember that, especially like you said, when you first start seeing these animes, and then you go to a video store. You're used to going to video store and say, "Oh, cartoons usually like $10 or something." All of a
Yeah.
sudden, you're seeing a cartoon movie. They're like $30-$40. Oh, and by the way, there's the native language dubbed or the original subtitle, and you're like going, you had to learn to tell which is the difference because the American versions almost always had identical covers.
Right.
Yeah.
And
And it
that
was like messed up a little bit back then to start because it was like, okay, I just spent $40 and I have to read, and some of these words I don't even know how to read yet.
And I just remember looking at the shelves and wanting it all, and you can't.
Oh, yeah.
And you get one thing, and even for that, you got to use all your allowance or whatever
You
grasses
had to
you
want
up.
it.
And
Dude, by the time I was actually being able to be a Suncoast player, I was in college with a job, and I was still going, damn, the prices are too much.
yeah. And I was
Before they went under.
I was discussing that with my friends tonight, you know, because they're all various age groups, but they all know what anime is and they all have their favorites. You know, I kind of shared that with them today and saying, you know, not to go old man here, but you kids are lucky that anime is everywhere nowadays. When back
And
then,
there's the internet.
yeah.
The internet and companies take notice of interest and are actually doing things like YouTube channels or streaming services.
Yeah. But back then, we were lucky if we found anything anime. We had to go to comic shops, specialty shops. Ryan mentioned
Conventions.
Suncoast, which was like the haven for anime. Even if it was a small section, you were at least able to find VHS tapes there. $19.99 for dubbed, $29.99 for subtitled. It was nuts. The prices, but we were willing to pay them.
Yeah.
We were willing to pay them.
I actually really like hearing stories of people importing like really bad subtitle versions of Dragon Ball Z from Japan.
Oh, the
and,
bootleg days.
Like they meet some dude that can translate that.
dude.
And like
The better ones,
like
international channel.
Trading.
International channel, Zombie. You remember that?
Yes,
Brian?
I do.
Their random hours, they would just suddenly have it on there, and their bad subtitling, and it was bright, eye-burning yellow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's like, oh, how
oh
bad
yeah,
do you wanna
I
know?
learned quickly to like the subtitle, prefer the subtitle versions over the bad American translation and voice narration. I will say though, for like Akira, I prefer the original English dub. Maybe I'm in the minority on that, but something about
Probably.
that Pioneer dub. You know what it was? It's like I was used to that, and that's what I like wore out on VHS. And by the time I saw like the Pioneer dub, I couldn't do it. I don't know. I had grown accustomed to the other.
You bring up a good point. Akira was one of the first major examples of getting relicensed and redubbed a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember before the big burst from oversaturation of certain licensing companies. Not going to name any, but there was like right at the max, they had like 3 or 4 different versions. And it was like, okay, everyone was arguing what was the definitive, if you're a true fan, you have this version. And it's like, I'm going to get the one that has the stuff I want to know or looks interesting to me. And I just happen to have gotten, and I'm not going to buy it again.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that happened a lot. I mean, there's people that like Ocean Group over whatever the current one is on some
Funimation.
stuff. I think Funimation still licensed out, but I'm talking about the actual voice acting studio they use for dubbing.
Mm-hmm. I know ADV is still around, and that one is...
ADV actually does not put out anime. They got bought out.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, they've been gone a long time. The major 2 players in America right now, actually no, I take that back, 3 players, is Funimation. They're like the last dog standing of like the original, you look for this company.
Right.
Then there's Sentai Filmworks and Discotech that have been just knocking shit out of the park lately, like bringing back
Central.
stuff. Sorry, what was that?
I was gonna bring up Central Park Media is also technically still around, but they're not really doing much.
Central Park. They were originally something else, and I can't remember what they were.
I think it's safe to say though, I'm sure that a lot of fans out there are glad 4Kids is gone.
4Kids had some of the greatest American censorship I have ever seen. I swear there's a generation
I kind of gotta.
Go ahead.
I kind of gotta defend 4Kids here because that's what I grew up on. Obviously, like some of the things they did was just bad. Like the 4Kids version of One Piece. Like, oh my god, that's so bad.
How do you love that rap music? Like in the lollipops. I'm honestly, like, really? No, the best one I ever saw them do.
I'll take that. I'll take that over the GT rap. That thing is just horrible.
Welcome to the Grand Tour.
Dragon Ball GT.
It's like, what's sad is that was probably the best thing they did for GT when they brought it over was the rap. But I swear there's got to be a huge generation of kids because of them that have a weird anxiety issue now with groups of people pointing at them because of Yu-Gi-Oh.
Yes.
So they wouldn't let because of the gun removal.
I love the invisible guns.
the strict pointing enough that fucking a main character felt the need to jump out a window that's in a place on a cliff with a sharp rocks and an ocean crashing against it.
That's
because you were pointing at him over cards. I'm like going,
dude,
what the fuck just happened?
That is the scene I was thinking of too when they go after Kaiba. Mr. Pegasus would like to have a few words with you, and he's just pointing his index finger and thumb.
It was bad. I mean, there were some bad ones there. And if they couldn't get around the gun thing, they all fired corks at each other. I'm like, really?
Right.
Yeah.
You have motherfuckers that are
reason,
like supernatural powers from fruit and they can't swim, but corks are what are scary here.
For whatever reason, in One Piece, like all the Navy are using water guns instead of like actual rifles, and I'm like, what kind of Navy are you?
It's like, go G.I. Joe at least, man. Give us some laser fire, and that's why we never see anybody die.
Right.
So I'm gonna take it back to what Yugoslav said, but you guys keep continuing. I'm gonna just highlight his comment again.
Let's see what his comment was.
Says extremists, lol, dub versus sub is so extremists, and even some fandoms like MHA and AOT and Demon Slayer nowadays.
Okay, so let's see here if I recognize these ones. Fandoms like
My
Hero Academia.
Sub versus dub debate is something that's just never going to end. It doesn't matter what decade you're in.
No.
That argument will never end.
I have an answer to this. I have my own answer to that whole bullshit extremist crap. To me, if you're a true fan, you will watch both, and whatever the mood you're in happens. If you feel like, okay, I want to relax and I don't mind reading and I want to hear it in the native language, cool, great for you. If you're like, sometimes I've been so tired and I just want to watch some anime, I will put the dub on simply so I can just enjoy the show, see all the stuff going on, even if I know that's not exactly what they said.
Right.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to what we're talking about with the 80s anime boom, where anime kind of took a different turn and started focusing on being more cinematic. We were seeing mangas, we were seeing TV shows readapted. The anime was becoming much more crisp, more well-defined. The story tones were definitely dark. And you were seeing this blend of animation that included noir, sci-fi, horror, fantasy, all different types of genres. And, you know, the old saying used to be that anime was like you kind of forget that you're watching an animated film because of just how drastically different it is.
There's some that are most times those are your cinematics that usually branch into it, and if they keep that same company because of how business deals work in Japan, usually you'll have that quality follow a series through.
Right.
Sometimes if it sits too long and they get somebody else, or it's still the same company but it's a different team, you get changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I'm trying to think of an example. Well, hell, look at Lupin the Third. That's a series that has been around, and you can definitely see anytime he's gotten a feature, it's changed. You can see the evolution of animation technology from cell to what computer art. Hell, he just put out not too long ago a full CGI film.
Right.
I mean, there's ways to keep styles without changing drastically and still update, which is always a great thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But it always
and there's going to be a new season. There's going to be a new season of Lupin the Third coming out soon.
That's going to happen now that Monkey D. Punch is no longer with us, unfortunately. That's how come we got a CGI film, because when he did, I believe it was Red versus Green, that was supposed to be the end of the anime universe for Lupin. He was like, because he was getting up there and he's like, not wanting to be like Akira Toriyama, who is like sitting there on his wall watching people mess with his shit.
Yep, he learned that lesson when he allowed us to bring Dragon Quest over in anime form, and we only got 13 episodes of Dragon Warrior.
That was different. He didn't know about that. They stuck that under him, and then he caught when he wasn't credited in any kind of way.
Right.
So that's why he got pulled. And
I don't blame him for that, because he's just as well known for that series as he is Dragon Ball and Dr. Slump, all those.
That's why if you look at any Dragon Warrior game, it's got that Akira Toriyama feel because he was the original illustrator and they've always used him for character design.
Yep. So here we are in the glorious 80s. Best of everything. Best music. Best movies. Video games. You had to be there, folks. The 80s rocked. And anime was no different.
The Guyver.
Damn right. Love me some Guyver. Love me some Devilman here. That is totally me right there. We've got Mazen in the chat who represents Mazinger. Mazinger Z in all his forms. I am the Devilman.
I had a talk with somebody. I had a chat with somebody about Mazinger recently, where they need to let that kind of rest a little bit. Because they're running out of ways to twist the original story and keep giving us outlandish, believable shit in Mazinger.
Right.
Like, I appreciate what it's done, and I love UFO Saucer and the Desco, if you remember that one. In the Desco series. I love those, don't get me wrong, but they need to take a chill for a minute.
Yep.
But that goes right up there with sometimes you need to shelve things, let them chill a bit, and then bring them back.
Otherwise,
you get Creon-chan, who's still fucking running. Holy shit. I thought he died, and I saw something, I forget where it was, and Monkey was like, oh no, he's been going strong. I'm like, God damn, no changes to style or anything, just slightly better color palette. Okay.
I will say this, though. Go Nagai's World was a pretty funny mashup. I liked the chibi style and how all the universes were crossing over and characters were going, wait a minute, I'm not this size. Wait a minute, who the hell are you?
He would do his sense of humor shows in all his work.
Yes.
There's always random things. Like in animes like the early 80s, 90s, like, I believe Devilman actually appeared. He didn't actually transform, if I remember right. I have the DVD for Cutie Honey. But he would always try to get, even in his comics, the characters would somehow cross. And he always established there was a shared universe there somehow.
Right.
It's like, or even the same planet. Like, they're all in the one universe and all this crazy shit's happening. I'm like going, Oh man.
Yeah.
Just what we need to have, that kind of relation. Crazy shit can all be happening at the same time, kids. You just don't know about it.
Exactly.
Look at the sugar queen of the world that you've been led to believe. That was one of the things about anime I enjoyed.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we
as
go,
much as I was as much as I was watching all the anime, I was also collecting at this time. I don't know if you guys were. I'm sure you were. The graphic novels, and what that allowed me to do was an affordable way to get, instead of worrying about each single issue of the comics, which is very hard to buy, I would get the graphic novels. And at that time, even Barnes and Noble had a lot of them, so I was able to kind of scope out, my local Barnes and Noble to keep up with that. Go to Suncoast if I had the money. But I would actually go to the comic book store. Now, we got to paint the scene here, because this was the comic boom of the '90s. Image Comics was in full throttle. Spawn was big. I mean, remember the Death of Superman? Everybody was buying that issue. They're keeping it sealed. It was that height of that market. Like, oh, this stuff's going to be worth so much one day. Cut to 20 years later, it's worth like $5 an issue, right?
Right.
But just to set the scene of that, so I would rely on my local comic book store to get those dubbed VHS in, to get those imports in, and it was a slightly better bargain than a Suncoast video. So those were my three avenues, whether it was the graphic novels at Barnes and Noble or Suncoast to the comic book store for the anime.
Yeah.
But it went hand in hand, because I would watch like Ghost in the Shell, and then the Masamune Shirow graphic novel. I loved, how much more the story you get, because you can only fit so much in the movie, right? So every time I would get a movie, I would look, is there the graphic novel to go along with it? Can I get it? Is it available? Is it affordable? So I would always look at that as kind of the addendum to adding on to what the movie gave me, or the lack thereof script. It kind of filled in all the gaps of maybe the story. And after reading the graphic novels, sometimes it made the movies make more sense, right? Because now so much more story.
Right.
Because there were still out of context things. Then there's shit that was just completely lost in translation. Just like if we send American stuff over there, it's a natural human nature thing to have jokes inside, like cultural jokes. Unfortunately, dubbing back then wasn't exactly good, or even subtitling, where they would literally directly translate something and it would make no sense to us. And it's like, it would cause that confusion sometimes, where you're like, okay, maybe it's in the comic or the graphic novel, manga, whatever you'd like to call that medium. And it wasn't there either. And it's like, okay, that was basically something somebody threw in there to put their little spin on it.
Right.
Now, my biggest question there for Ryan right now, since he brought in manga into this thing, what was the first manga series you picked up, if you remember?
Believe it or not, it was I think it was Ranma, because it was
not a bad one. Not a bad one.
And it just, I mean, maybe it didn't hurt that the girls were very attractive. Also, Project Aiko. I remember loving Project Aiko.
Aiko is the shit. They're actually doing a Blu-ray, reissuing Blu-ray remasters of the original 3 anime onto Blu-ray discs.
Very cool.
Another one I love was, since I like Ghost in the Shell and Masamune Shirow, Dominion Tank Police was really fun.
Now that's an obscure one.
Yeah. Well known, but obscure.
I think they still showed it on Saturday Anime. That was great. Did you guys Robot Carnival? All those different.
I remember that one.
Oh yeah.
So cool.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the stuff that blew my mind. Just so many different art styles in one movie. But yeah, I loved it. Like I said, like the '90s, I was eating all that stuff up. Especially before I got more into music and being in bands. That's what I spent my money on.
Oh yeah. As you get older, you have to make choices.
Yep.
So let's sort of segue into that part of the podcast, because we're definitely reaching a point where, again, anime is really starting to bloom, and from very small, different, maybe like a handful of titles here and there, Now we're starting to see anime appearing in stores, usually VHS. Um, excuse me, a little bit of the pneumonia there. Um, we've got Suncoasts popping up in malls. We've got comic book stores. We've got actual anime specialized stores popping up. I know my favorite back in the day was one called Planet Neo in Tempe. The guy who owned it was really awesome. He used to host bootleg DBZ days on Saturdays all day. He would just play the movies and the episodes, stuff that we didn't have here yet. Um, and then, of course, we started seeing Orion, a well-known movie company at the time, starting to kind of help produce these and get these titles out there. But let's take it to where a lot of us probably got our foot in the door, and that was when the Sci-Fi channel hosted the always awesome Sci-Fi Saturdays, which I'll play a clip of the intro here.
Oh man, the nostalgia right now.
Right? How many of you guys watching, how many of you guys hosting remember hearing and seeing that title scroll?
Dude, I remember a lot of them. There was, let's see, there was Toonami, Adult Swim, Stars, Showtime had their little blocks. I remember, I think it was, yeah, it was Showtime had a special block on Friday nights. G4, before it acquired Anime Invasion from their merger with Channel Tech USA or something like that. And MTV even had some.
Yep. I'm going to pull
MTV
that up.
MTV was the first to really, I remember back in the 90s, my dad found out that they were showing Speed Racer, and that was like a thing we did. We sat there every night that they had, that was the Speed Racer night, we watched them all, and he told me about it, because growing up, one of the things, you know, you do bad things and things get taken away, and they give you like examples of like, if you don't do this, this is what happened to me, so I'm not picking on you examples.
Right.
Was he talked about Speed Racer, and I had no idea what the hell Speed Racer was as a kid. So getting to see it, it's like, oh, okay. You know what I mean? I got to see that establishment of, okay, that's Speed Racer, cool, neat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was my first sign of seeing, like, okay, something nostalgic can bloom out of control and be part of something bigger, because then, like, for, like, the early part of the 90s, you saw Speed Racer everywhere.
Right.
And then it just went away. I was like, okay.
Now,
To me, the key about taping every Saturday anime was to rewatch them to understand them, because it's so much stuff goes over your head when you watch these the first time.
Mm-hmm.
You're trying to understand everything, you know, and you gotta really rewatch it, and the more you watch, the more you get from it, you know.
Well, it had rewatch value. It wasn't just like, oh, you bought it once, you watched it maybe once or twice, or you spammed it over and over again, and then never again, and just sat on the shelf.
Right.
You either got a passion for it, or
and that's
you just
and that's
really
one
liked
thing
it.
That's one thing I kind of want to bring up is anime in general kind of has an overarching story, and that's how they write almost all their stories. Where a lot of American cartoons were very episodic, very like, this is the bad guy of the week. Where you had like Dragon Ball, where you're seeing this kid going out finding the Dragon Balls to stop the evil villain, and that takes like 12 episodes. When if that was an American cartoon, it'd probably be done in one episode. So getting the full picture from taping those episodes.
What I want to ask you guys, what I want to ask all you guys, did you ever get like looks like I would wear like these shirts to school, like from the comic book store of like Akira or Ghost in the Shell or whatever, and people would be like, "What even is that?" They didn't know what it was. Did you ever like? I tried to recruit friends too. I would show them stuff. I usually would show them like Ninja Scroll, something more just straightforward, and see if they would dig it. But nobody knew what it was. It's like, what show is that? How do you even say that? How do you pronounce that? What is that?
Absolutely.
Did you ever get that? Did you ever get that when you would, wear a shirt like that to school? Or
I had somebody try to beat my ass on Freshman Friday for being myself and wearing things like that. Then I got a reputation as they think you're the Unabomber because you're stoic, you don't say much, and apparently you had no trouble fighting kids in a parking lot off school grounds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, yeah.
Anime was one of those things that was so foreign to people in my grade school. And
They didn't
actually,
understand it.
I actually shared some of these stories again with my friends today about how I would sit there in class. I would draw Dragon Ball. I would draw Sailor Moon. I would draw Ronin Warriors. All the different shows and series that I watched, nobody had any clue what the hell it was. And you would try to explain what it is, and then they lost interest in like 2 minutes. They're like, okay, yeah, I'm good. I'm done. I don't, It's one of the things that I expected to be made fun of, really, but I never did because it was so foreign to people that they didn't know how to make fun of me over it. And it wasn't until
So,
as it became more and more mainstream that people started recognizing, oh, that's what that is, Like, I think somewhere between Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon, anime started to be everywhere.
There
And
was two animes very specifically that like I saw. Well, three if you want to get technical. The Pokemon anime like fucking washed over like a plague. Then Toonami came out with Gundam Wing, which was like holy shit, all over the place. Because then it was like, oh wait, we learned not every anime can be called Gundam or whatever, but is also there's different ones. They're not always interlinked. There's like whole different casts, whole different designs and shit like that. That washed over too. Yeah, and there was another one. Damn it, I had the third one. I just forgot it.
yeah.
It's just you would see things like that, and it was like, okay, big thing. When the only retailer I saw,
so
go ahead.
I was just gonna jump in and say that I do actually have a funny story of anime in my high school. So I was when I was in high school, Attack on Titan was the big anime,
Yeah.
and I remember in basketball, I used to be a basketball player in high school, and I overheard some of the popular kids saying, "Hey, on Saturday I'm going to be watching Tanami to catch the newest episode of Attack on Titan." And that like blew my mind because these were like the popular kids that got like all the girls and they were playing all the sports,
And
and
they're just being
it just blew my mind that
quiet.
like this anime was like so big that like even the popular kids were talking about it. And I remember thinking that was kind of cool.
Yeah, so it sounds like by then, um, anime was more socially acceptable, whereas back in our day, it was
Yep.
just.
You were if the popular kids liked it, they were closeted and didn't want to admit it. Be honest, zombie.
No,
You know that was
they were
true.
definitely open about it. Like I was
Yeah.
growing up into the era where
Yeah.
like the nerdy kid was the cool kid.
Right.
Well, see, you dated yourself by saying in high school Attack on Titan. I'm like, oh, okay, we got an age range.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for me, this was
yeah. I
middle
gotta
school.
mention to everybody here, I'm 25 years old. I was born in '97. I did not
Right.
grow up in the '80s
I
and
keep
'90s,
forgetting that.
anything like that.
I do
I'm
keep
pretty young.
forgetting that. See, and you
JChip's
got to
like, I'm the
remember,
baby in the room.
yeah, JChip anime was so accepted by them because when like with the age difference here, like when I was in middle school, like I'm saying, nobody knew what the hell it was. Everybody would ask me, "What is that? What movie is it? What cartoon is it?" They would call it cartoon because they don't know anime. They don't know that word, you know, and
Right.
they'd all be confused
Now,
by it. The Japanese lettering, it was
now
complete confusion with them.
you think that, but like most of these people were just kind of watching the popular shows. They were watching what's new. I was kind of the weird one, I guess, because I was going back and watching the old stuff like Gundam, Inuyasha, even Rama back in the day.
Right.
That's how you need to
Um,
be. Those are
but
fundamentals.
despite anime becoming more and more popular, I would argue it hasn't become mainstream yet, just because the terminology anime, like there's a lot of people that just find it kind of weird and different, so they kind of gravitate they kind of avoid it.
Well, if you want to see some progression, how we got to anime, I can tell you. I'm sure Ryan and Zombie can remember this. Maybe even BFG if he's still here. The Japanimation section.
Yes.
Remember that's what it was called.
Yes, it was. Japanimation.
Yep.
And now that's considered almost derogatory.
What's funny is I've had friends that are huge into this stuff. They got to go with their families to Japan. They don't have a problem with it being called that. Apparently, that's a Western thing.
Yeah. Let me.
Which I think.
Oh, go ahead.
I mean, that's some dating shit. There's always been ways. There's adult animation, adult cartoons, anime. I mean, it's one of those things I've just learned to accept. It's take your pick.
Right. Now, I want to highlight Easy Meyer Vid's comment here before he exits stage right for the night. He mentions people watched anime without knowing it was anime, like Voltron. I would 100% agree with that.
We mentioned that way in the beginning.
Right, but I want
oh yeah, I get it.
I want to highlight that because it definitely enhances our point on that. A lot of people really didn't realize we were watching something from Japan. I sure as hell didn't think that watching Voltron, Thundercats, Silverhawks, Robotech. I just thought it was all cartoons. It took being exposed to it later to realize, oh, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah. There was people, and what's funny is one of the people you wouldn't think kind of helped push that kind of stuff was Stan Lee and a couple other Western people whose products were being took there, so they had business in Japan, saw this stuff, and was like, we need to push this kind of stuff over here and help market it.
That's true. That is very true.
They kind of, you wouldn't know it, led a charge fighting a lot of things, and for us what happened is the right people that were involved with those kind of projects eventually in network television fell into positions of power, and people would get somebody else that thought nobody had tried before would bring to them, they're like, oh, I remember that. Yeah, let's bring it over. Hell yeah, here, let's do it.
And see, I wanted to highlight Wolfpack's comment here too as well, further enhancing what we said earlier. I remember when people didn't even know what anime was and would call it Japanimation. So you see, this was as globally accepted as Japanimation more than I thought it was when I was a kid, because it was just so obscure. And I remember that being the thing for a while. It was okay to say that. Now it's not. Now it's more of a derogatory thing.
It's a read the room kind of term.
Mm-hmm. Look at my Uncle Phil here dropping the facts.
I kind of want to bring up I kind of want to bring up with the 80s. So we kind of talked about how 60s and sometimes 70s anime started to were using more Disney style animation, and then you had Speed Racer, which was one of the first few anime to start using an overarching plot, and it definitely planted the seeds for the 80s. And I would argue the 80s was the most important decade in terms of anime ever, because if it failed, who knows if it would even still be here today. But the popularity of anime, especially in Japan, was just so huge. Like, people were dropping like thousands of dollars literally just so they can get the next Laserdisc of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It was insane.
And unfortunately it took the US years to catch up and kind of recognize what anime was, not only in terms of artistic style and storytelling, but also the voice acting part. In Japan, voice actors are held in such high regard, almost even more than actual Japanese movie stars and pop stars, if not on the same level.
Literally, if you were living in Akihabara, and after high school, you can literally go into a Japanese voice acting class just to get lessons.
The fun thing is what's interesting, why a lot of people like watching subs more, is because of the lip syncing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. It has a lot to do with the approach of how you dub over your animation.
Yep.
There's the Western, if I remember right. It's been a while, but we tend to do the thing and force you to get your timing with whatever we draw,
Yeah.
as opposed to the Eastern way, which is they give you something to look at in a script and they adjust the mouth movements to the track.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it takes them a little bit longer to come out with stuff back then, especially when it was hand-drawn cell stuff. Because then you have to sit there and sync certain shapes as a mouth moves, which, God bless in-betweener workers, man. Holy shit. They are like a truly unsung hero.
Yep.
Back then, they got no. They kind of help set the stage for programs now that it's like, oh, okay, well, I put this in there, it reads it, it syncs it, good to go. Back then, you had to sit there and put the frame in or adjust a cell or repair the cell to do all that.
Now, let me ask you guys a question. When does Zombie? You got a better memory than me. When does Liquid Television align with this? Aeon Flux, the Max. Was this before or after Saturday Anime? I'd have to look that up, but maybe you already know.
I remember
They
catching
were-
Liquid Television beforehand.
Yeah. Back then, they weren't calling themselves anime. They were just adult cartoons on
Right.
MTV.
Along
They
this-
were that 10 o'clock at night kind of shit where kids should be asleep and teenagers are out partying or not.
Right.
Right.
It was always at a
Not
weird
supposed to be
time.
awake.
You had to catch it. You had to catch it at a weird time.
Yeah, it was late at night when all good boys and girls should be passed out, and mommy and daddy might watch it because they're rebels and they're not like their parents.
Along with, what I used to talk about, the original Ren and Stimpy that wasn't as edited as the Nickelodeon version. And I'm glad you bring that up, Ryan, because that's exactly what I'm going to showcase here. This is the very first anime-related anything that we had ever seen in our household. This is Liquid Television. This is the anime Neo Tokyo. And my God, was this one of the most graphic things we had ever seen. This is the Running Man segment. For those of you who have never seen Neo Tokyo, it's a combination of 3 30-minute animated films, each with a different story, each from a different author. This is the segment known as the Running Man, where
the Nightmare taking over the city, or is that a different one? Like the monsters?
Oh, that's different. That's different.
Okay.
In this segment here, they kind of do like, I want to say F-Zero style racing, only the pressure of racing a car that fast has the potential to kill their drivers. They either die from the pressure of the speed, or they literally go insane neurologically and die from the inside. It's such a crazy sci-fi anime mini film. But we happened to be scrolling through cable one night, and my uncle's watching this going, what is this? And adults go to bed. He and I stay up to watch this, and we were just blown away by it. And so we're like, are there more of these? Where do we find them?
And then the chase began.
Yep. So I would say for me, this is the earliest exposure that I got to actually knowing and understanding what anime was. And from this point on, like I said, my uncle and I were trying to find different sources to watch. Now that we knew what anime was, or at least Japanimation at the time, we're looking back on everything that kind of fit this artistic style, and then we start remembering, wait, Voltron was like this, Robotech was
just
like
wasn't
this.
as raw.
Yeah, exactly. And that was another distinguishing feature that we were realizing about anime film versus TV series. The similarities are there, but when you see it on TV, it's going to be highly edited, just like the Sci-Fi broadcasts were. But when you go to those stores and you buy those overpriced VHS tapes, you get blood, you get profanity, there's sexual content in some, depending on what the story is. It's just mind blowing how different they are. And
Real quick, hold that thought. Wolfpack, I do remember seeing Bastard, and it was one of the first animes I rented from a Blockbuster, and I own that bitch on DVD.
Yep.
The zombie, the one anime that was going through my mind as you were talking about that is a movie called Legend of the Overfiend.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly graphic. It is extremely not safe for work, so definitely do not show your kids. But like, it is some of the most insane animation you'll ever see.
Right.
Help me pronounce it. It starts with a U, right? Like Yuritsuku Doji or something like that.
Yuritsu Yatsura?
Yeah,
See how wrong I was.
Oroku Doji.
I don't know Japanese like that. Like, how do you say it again? Say it again, zombie. I have no chance.
Yuritsu Yatsura?
Yeah, okay. That was okay. I remember distinctly that at Suncoast.
Urusei, yeah.
That was at Suncoast in a box set for like $150 fucking dollars.
Mm-hmm.
It was insane price.
That's also a very long and popular series, so it's no surprise that they price gouge it like that, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And fun fact, that was made by Rumiko Takahashi, the same author that brought out Ranma 1/2 and Inuyasha.
Mm-hmm. We got the chat booming with some titles here. I'm trying to read through a lot of these.
Dad dropped a freaking hentai, a very notorious hentai title.
Oh boy.
I know it.
I know it too, but we're not gonna get into that.
We're not gonna drop into the hentai-verse.
We're
the
not
hentai-verse needs to stay away.
Yes, that's its own thing.
that is a Ratcast After Dark Sunday night.
Right.
All good boys and girls are like nowhere to be found special.
Now, were you guys Max fans? Because that
absolutely.
To me, that was the high watermark for me. Even with Ian Flux and like that show The Head, and like there were some good shows on there, but to me, like the high watermark was the Max. I taped every episode of that. I had that comics. Mm-hmm. I was fascinated by it and trying to understand it. Mm-hmm. You know, like the dream world versus the real world, and how gritty it was and grimy, and he was trying to protect the girl in it.
Yeah, his jungle queen in the dream world.
So cool. I loved it. Every bit of it. Very, I would say, ahead of its time for the themes, and the storyline is unlike anything else at the time. It was great.
Well, yeah, because we started to see how, and let me get this intro going for you. We started to see how anime was influencing American art, American comics.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And I
like Aeon Flux, I believe, was actually American animated. It wasn't Japanese animated. It was inspired by Japanimation.
Yeah.
I think it was similar for Max, but I'm not 100% sure on that one.
And I gotta say that while I don't hate Aeon Flux, the artistic style with like the over skinny, largely tall people kind of makes me sick.
It was very it was very odd and like kinky, you know, like they're like licking each other half the time. It's like it's very weird.
It used to be the Aeon Flux cartoon or animation was originally chopped up into like between commercial break kind of show, laced into the adult programming. How most people see it now is like in the DVD collection because of the the live action movie, which god damn, that was so disappointing. A lot of beautiful money spent on that for special effects to try to match certain things from the literally from the cartoon and stuff. But yeah.
Oh yeah, the one you just said, zombie, the Russian astronauts. Was it Russian? So, something astronauts. I remember that one. The wings of whatever. How you say that?
Wings of Hanamais.
Yeah, isn't it like Russian astronauts and they go into they're trying to fly into space?
Wings of Harmony. I don't think it's cosmonauts. I think it was like supposed to be
I
a
remember
Japanese
a lot of
version.
flying in there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No?
I think it was like a weird Japanese Wright brothers. I thought.
Yeah, something like
Okay.
that. It's been a very long time since I've seen it.
I
I
haven't
swear
seen
they were
that
in
one in a
one of them
long
was
time.
in a spacesuit on the cover. Maybe I'm wrong.
They might have been. It was like a. I remember that one. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah,
But
beautifully animated. Or like
Oh,
Grave with
yeah.
Fireflies.
Yeah.
Was
now
another-
that one's a heart pull right there. Grave of the Fireflies.
Come on, Mazin. You know me. You know I love me some Hakuro no Ken. I am all about Fist of the North Star.
You know what's funny is that's actually a hard series to like get the DVDs for.
Yes.
It was a limited print.
Yes.
You have an easier time finding
And-
bootleg collections
and
than you do.
finally,
Victory Leo said Apple.
and finally, the original manga.
Mm-hmm.
The original manga for Fist of the North Star is being translated into English.
Yep. For sure. It's about
Okay.
damn time.
So you mentioned Victory Leo brought up Appleseed.
Yeah,
That's a classic.
Which Appleseed is he talking about? Because they've done so many like
the original.
reimaginings.
I know what you mean. The later one wasn't as good.
I would imagine the
original.
original too. The one that came
Yeah,
out
I
on
want
VHS.
to say I want to say the original, but I
Yeah,
have to clarify because there is actually a modern update one that doesn't have like any subtitle. It just goes Appleseed. So I'm like, which one are we
Yeah.
talking about?
no, I know
Yeah.
what
He
you mean.
says
I
that.
remember renting it and being disappointed because I wanted the original and I had seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Victory Leo. If you like Appleseed, you got to watch Dominion Tank Police. That's right up the same alley with the mechs.
Who remembers MD Geist?
Oh, I watched MD Geist. We had
That
those.
is done by the same. That's by the same. Damn! I can't remember his name. Ryan's been dropping his name like constantly, and now I'm like just spacing out.
Yeah.
I don't
But
think
it's
it was
part of-
it. Was it Masamune Shiru? I don't know.
Yeah, it was part.
Was it?
For a minute, there was a collection that you could get that had like all of his works that had at that time been put out onto DVD, and they called it his collection, and MD Geist was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yep. But we had the original MD Geist tapes separately too. So
I remember renting that one too, and let me tell you, one of the ways I got some of my anime collection on VHS, previously viewed, we're getting rid of it. I was there.
Yeah.
It's like, hell, I had to do it. But you also had to watch out for other people who had a similar idea sometimes because, like we said, back then it was really expensive to get anime, even just
And-
2 episodes.
Do you remember
On
the
a tape.
copyright protection?
Oh, of
When
course.
you try to dub them, couldn't do it with the Blockbuster tapes.
Yep.
Some had it, some didn't, but most had that. Where
Hmm.
if you hooked up 2 VCRs, somehow it detected it, and it would like wash out. It would like darken the whole screen, so you
Uh-huh.
could not dub them.
Yep. That's true.
My stepdad had a way he figured out from I don't know what his excuse was, but from his military training, figured a way around that, and he would do that.
Wow.
He'd rent a bunch of anime, even if wasn't something I wanted, and he just like, boom, you now have a bunch of movies to watch later. So
I'm
that was
sure
another
it
way to
required
see it.
some kind of. I'm sure it required some kind of hub in between. Like you'd play it on one VCR, and then
I think
would
it
be on
was.
some middle device, and then out the other.
I think it was just literally like an old ass RF unit, and I was like, okay, this
Mhm.
thing looks dangerous, kind of shit. But it was like, okay. It
I
gave,
remember.
like you said,
I remember. I even tried doing it like through my receiver, like doing the VCR in and audio and video, and then running it through the out into the other, and it still did it. Still detected it.
yeah,
I
it
remember
was
trying to
weird.
outsmart it.
Yeah.
it was weird. It was a dark time for all of us. Then came when the evolution of the DVD market, like really mixing it up.
Yeah. But before we jump into that, let me
No, I gotta.
keep it in the VHS realm because again, as we're all these titles that we're throwing out, the exposure is getting bigger. We're finding that anime has a genre, a story for just about everyone now. And while we're either watching bootleg tapes or we're watching censored versions on the Sci-Fi channel, one of the best ways that you could get exposure to anime was uh if you bought these on VHS, and they usually had these bumpers that you would see before the actual film. Orion used to play this all the time on every tape that I own. It would always play just before the film. And I remember watching these going, okay, I need to find these titles. I need to see what I'm looking at here in full form and pick it up. And that includes the first dub of Akira, which we all called it Akira. But the way that I differentiate it is Akira is the 80s dub, Akira is the Japanese and the newer dub that I like. You know?
What's the new term they use? Not otaku, weeaboo.
Weeaboo.
The English dub I liked. It had one of the TMNT actors, right?
Yes,
one of
it
the
did. Cam Clark,
Yep.
who voiced. They call him Kaneda in the bad dub, but it's Kaneda. Yes, he is the voice of Leonardo in the original Turtles.
Right.
Well,
No,
you also gotta remember
Zombie. I
dubbing-
got a question for you.
Sure.
I actually had a question for you. Back in the 80s, where did a lot of people go to hang out and talk about anime?
Mostly comic stores. Where I lived, there was a chain of comic book stores called Atomic Comics, and they all specialized in American comics, American toys, and whatnot. But they were one of the first to start bringing in Japanese products, Japanese stuffies, Japanese art, posters, VHS tapes. And that was kind of where a lot of us would hang out on Saturdays and kind of, shoot the breeze about whatever came in. Atomic Comics carried a lot of Ranma One Half, and that's kind of how I got into it. Lo and behold, I'm a now real life Ranma One Half. So that was usually where we would go. Sometimes mom and pop comic book places had it, but it was mostly the chains of comic book stores that had it. And then all of a sudden, you started to see smaller specialty stores pop up. And the best one that we had, at least in the area at the time, was this one, Planet Neo. And his whole store was decked out in Japanese everything. There wasn't anything American in there, not even the sodas. And that's where we got a lot of our exposure to subtitles, dubs, bootlegs, products you didn't see in stores very often. And that's where we kind of shifted our focus from going to Atomic Comics, which is reopening after decades of being closed in Phoenix, or Mesa actually. And we would go to these specialty stores where, yeah, the prices were a little bit higher, but you were getting imports. You were getting actual Japanese products. Now, we also had Suncoast, like we mentioned earlier, but Suncoast was more of like get you in, get you out kind of store. Nobody really hung out there to really talk about them. You mostly went to comic book and specialty stores. At least that's what we did back in the day.
Let's see. Yes, I remember Legend of Himiko. That was a really good one. That was the first time I remember getting like a fantasy waifu thing going on there. That's what it was.
I know.
Think about it. They didn't. Let's be honest. Sailor Moon. There's a huge reason that does well is because there's so many of them, and you can find there's a girl for everybody's type on that show. I mean, come on.
It's funny. It's funny you bring that up because I kind of want to. I wish I could go back in the day and be into the topic of who was best girl in Evangelion.
Right. I mean, nowadays
there's three. What is it? There's 3 pilots from the latest series they did of the reimagining or whatever the hell you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
the Point series. Yeah, the rebuild or Point, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Speaking on that, there was the 3 major ones people were always arguing about was Asuka, Rey, and why can I not remember her name? Red coat, had a cross, bandit.
There was 2 other, Ritsuko and Masato.
Right.
I never met anyone who was like, I want the Masato chick. I want her bad. I met plenty of people that are like, I want Rey.
Masato. What are you talking about? Masato was like the older one. She would drink beer. She would talk shit. Like she was awesome.
No, see that's Masato. I thought you were talking about the freaking the blonde lab woman who was like obsessed with his dad, Shinji's dad.
Mm-hmm.
I got her name.
That's Risco.
I got him flipped around. That's my bad. But I never met anybody who was like, I want the one who's got this weird obsession with Shinji's dad. Right. I never met anyone with that. I met plenty of people who wanted to get with Masato though, or Rey. Only one ever with Asuka though.
I wanna highlight Wolfpack's comment here. He says Wicked City is dope. Funny story. I got that, and some of you may have heard this already. I got that anime for my 13th birthday. My other uncle, who actually was the one that taught us that what we were watching was anime, and was the one that I would frequent the comic book stores with and all that. He got that for me, and I was ecstatic because now I actually got to have my first anime film, unedited, and based on the premise, it was probably going to be one that I liked. We made the mistake of watching that with everyone in the family, and I kid you not, we never heard the end of it for at least a couple of years.
Yeah. A lot of
bad.
Oh man.
A lot of horror stuff in there too, right? If I remember it right.
A lot of sexual depiction, a lot of violence. My mom, my grandma, my aunt were flipping out, yelling at me like I picked the movie. Yelling at my uncle for buying it for me. The only one that was sitting there kicking back watching it and enjoying it was my grandfather.
Well, that's a good point. We had to hide this shit from our parents.
Yeah, it was almost like having porn.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about you two, but actually... I never had that problem.
Oh, you're lucky then.
I only had the be responsible, don't let your younger siblings see this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I was like, my mom was mad enough. I was like ripping spines out of Mortal Kombat, and let alone watching TNA on anime. You know, she wouldn't be down with that.
And here's what I don't understand. So there was this huge uproar about us watching Wicked City when I had seen live action films that showed nudity.
Right.
You know, my grandfather introduced me to what a porno was. So it's not like seeing the female or male form was foreign to me.
If you notice too, the themes were a lot of times the characters would use the women would use the sexual prowess to kill the other characters, right? To get them in a situation where they could kill them or morph into a monster or more. You know what I mean? That's what you see that in Ninja Scroll. You see that in Wicked City. You see that like they would capitalize on their prey by being seductive and then killing them.
Right. But see, that's part of the problem with watching anime with people who don't get it. Because whereas Wicked City is known for being violent and having a lot of sexual content, what they're failing to miss is how it's being used. The female creatures use it as a power. They use it as a strength. It's they're using it as a means to entice men and get what they want out of it. Unfortunately, some of the female characters experience it in the form of, I don't want to say it, but you kind of get where that's going.
Yep.
So it's not just about the graphic nature, it's about you're failing to see how the characters are using it. And it just adds to the realism of the storytelling. Again, we're forgetting that we're watching a cartoon on caliber with like a rated R movie. And it's just it's insane.
Do you think?
The amount of story that they had.
Do you think it was just kind of taboo with the fact that it was animated and not live action?
I think so. I think people had problems with the ideas that cartoons were now pushing the envelope and stepping into, quote, adult territory. We were used to cartoons being, like comic book hero based, maybe parody based, like Flintstones and the Honeymooners or the Jetsons. There was a variety of cartoons that families were used to. They weren't used to anime.
I gotta blame some of my diversion away from being an anime fan. What slowed me down really was the feeling I got burned a few times, and here's why I got burned. Okay, the company Manga, was that they had the stamp? They put out a lot of the releases.
Manga Entertainment
or Manga Core.
So I would buy some of the new releases coming out, and what was happening that was turning me off was the full-on integration of the computer animation versus the cell, and I was losing the detail that I loved in your Wicked City or your Ghost in the Shell or your Akira. So so it was kind of like the Nintendo NES like syndrome, where you're looking at the screenshot, where you're looking at the back and it looks amazing, and you're looking at the front cover art, and then you bring it home and it's very simple looking, very like it's obviously on a computer, missing the detail, missing the hand sketching, missing. So I felt burned because I was paying $30 a tape, and I'm not getting what I was accustomed to getting, maybe spoiled by getting of the early 90s and 80s. And that's part of why I moved away.
Do you remember what year it was?
I'm going to say this was late 90s when you started.
He got caught in the growth. He got caught in the growth. He lost during their growth pain of finding that happy medium.
Because Japan was kind of starting to learn how computers were starting to work and how to use that for their animation.
Mm-hmm.
And just the comparison was, it just wasn't there. You couldn't, it's night and day, the amount of detail that was lost on some of those early new releases that they were putting out. It wasn't the same detail, I'm sure it was like the amount, it was that time when Toy Story came out, right? As an American film, like that looked amazing for the time, but that's when that wave hit, right? Everything was starting to be computer animated towards that mid to late 90s, right? And I think it's just like I was spoiled by that early, maybe the golden era of the Japanese animation with all the detail, and it turned me off some of the computer animated ones that were coming out. It just didn't have the detail or the plots half the time too.
No, detail wise, I will agree. I think their newer anime kind of lack some kind of detail, especially with the backgrounds. you look at Vampire Hunter D and you're thinking, man, that guy probably took hours
Yeah.
drawing that background.
Oh yeah.
And nowadays it's definitely photoshopped, but like I'll say this in defense of like newer anime, the quality of the animation has definitely been pretty impressive. It's very impressive to see how fluid they can make some of that animation look.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we start to see that as technology is changing, as anime's booming, they're trying to incorporate different ways to kind of change but also revigorate anime at the same time. I mean, Dragon Ball Z has been redone several times. And whether you're a fan of the new
Yeah.
artistic style it's taken or you prefer the original, um, you're gonna have that selection where they're either gonna shift entirely or maybe they'll keep some of the original style alive, but they're gonna put more emphasis on computer usage, I think.
Allows them nowadays. It's a way you don't have to have as many workers,
Yeah.
as many outsourcing, and as long as you don't lose your mainframe with all your storage stuff, you can easily do it once, cut and paste.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I mean too. Did you see
Yep.
the behind the scenes of Akira? And they had like a floor of a corporate
Oh, yeah.
building,
Oh yeah.
and the cell shaders were just desk after cubicle after cubicle, just a squad, like a military squad. That so many artists working on it. Even the soundtrack, the amount of musicians that they had recording the classical instruments, whatever, to do that soundtrack. The whole thing was an epic scale to make that movie.
Right.
They made you
No, I
value.
just
They did
kind of
value
want
their
to
watcher. Go ahead.
I
JChip,
just kind of
go.
want to point out that like I don't think it's been like becoming more lazy with the animators. There's still a ton of work that puts into it,
Oh
and
yeah.
there's still a ton of people that work on just how gorgeous some of the animation can be. But as I said, I think like there's some level of detail that has been lost over time.
Yeah.
It's what we've kind of talked about in previous podcast episodes where the push for from practical to CGI effects, you know, it follows that same kind of trajectory where we're stepping away from well-known anime styles and uh I guess you could say technology versus today where they're pushing more of like the CG kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I don't want to sound like I'm like stuck in the past, and I don't want to sound like I don't want innovation to happen, and I want things to improve. I want technology is going to improve over time. You can't stop it. It would be ignorant to be like we're only going to sell drawn animation for forever. It'll be ignorant, right? It'll be
Right.
stupid. But the taste of me, I'm spoiled like by that early golden age. That's where my taste is. That I love that stuff. Going back to that, and I appreciating the detail in it.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that late '90s was kind of like the puberty era because like they were segueing into the computer thing. Maybe they didn't master it yet, so I was getting really that early on kind of cheesy looking animation before they maybe mastered it into the 2000s and improved upon it better with utilizing it better. So I think it was unfortunate that maybe that led to me moving away from it because of that change in style of how they did it.
Yeah. And that's not to say that what they do nowadays isn't impressive at all.
Yeah.
Some of it is really, really good, but I think it also comes down to um, to the previous point of when we started to slide into using CG, where if you blend it well enough and people can't tell what it is, like people can't tell that they're actually CGing this, then that's what makes it stand out. That's what makes it, better than what's being generated nowadays. And I believe, yeah, Wolfpack mentioned that earlier, where he said the best CG in anime is the CG you don't realize is CG. That is a valid point. I think when you're able to look at it and still kind of recognize the artistic talent that went into it and the original aesthetic, and you don't know that you're watching something CG'd, that's good. That's impressive.
So
a good example, real quick.
There's a newer show. Go ahead.
I was gonna
A
say,
great- Nope.
BFG. Do you remember Liquid Television on MTV? Do you remember seeing any of the Liquid Television shows like Eon Flux, The Max, The Head, and any of those weird ones? Did you catch any of those? Because they came on at a weird time.
So I did, but I couldn't tell you what I saw. I don't remember the names.
Right. What about any of the? Did you remember Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi channel? Any of these movies like Akira or Ghost in the Shell?
So for me, I I think my intro to this was more. I think there was a time where actually was heavy metal.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and I think it was a VH1. I think they had a VH1 airing of heavy metal, and I caught it one late night, and I was just blown away by it. But I didn't know what it was, you know. As far as Akira goes, it was the commercials, you know, that you would see aired on the channels. You know, order Akira, and get you know, and they would show just, you know, the real quick cutscenes and stuff of the movie. And I did eventually see it, and I loved it. But you know, during that time, the only thing I had was a late night showing of heavy metal, and I I did not know what I was watching.
Yeah.
And it definitely blew me away.
And I can remember showing my friends stuff and having to explain a lot of this stuff, and it was completely divided. You know, like one of my friends was like, you know, like, here, I want my 3 hours of my life back. The other was like, I loved it. It was cool. Where can I see more of this? It's awesome. So yeah, I would like, you know, just you never knew what people are gonna, how they're gonna react to it.
Mhm.
Like I had friends that like were mad at me that I made them sit through it. Like they're like, I don't, you know, and I felt bad. I just assumed, you know, I assumed that I loved it so much other people were, but it's not always the case, as you know.
Right. Josh, you had a point earlier.
There was earlier on a clip that was running on YouTube on your screen there for Manga Corp or Manga Entertainment, depending on how you knew them.
Right.
Of Macross Plus,
Mm-hmm.
the movie. That was an example of really early them trying to make a lot of effort to keep detail and blend CGI into it. Where they were very first starting. Great example of it.
Mm-hmm. And BFG mentioning that commercial, that advertisement to get you to buy Akira, and then you were kind of roped into buying other animes as well. Kind of like that old CD club. If you guys remember that crap.
Columbia House had anime DVDs. I remember that shit.
Yeah. I remember seeing that exact commercial, and lo and behold, I found it here on YouTube. Somebody was cool enough to upload this. And yeah, they pushed Akira so much that it got to the point
They air that all the time.
Where I got to the point where I was sick of it. I'm like, it's good.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's not great. Okay.
Well, Ghost in the Shell they pushed too. Ghost in the Shell they pushed it up. Ninja Scroll I would say those three: Ghost in the Shell, Akira. I'm trying to say it like you guys. I'm just so used to Akira.
That's fine.
But yeah, Ghost in the Shell, Akira, and Ninja Scroll. Those were like the three. I'm just saying, like, you would see those in Blockbusters always. You would see those in Best Buy. When shit to me, like, in my mind, when you would see shit in Best Buy, that's when it's definitely been distributed well, because Best Buy doesn't really fuck with the independent stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and just on the pronunciation a bit. So the only reason I can't say Akira is I had a boss who one time I brought it up to him, and I was like, "Oh, you like anime? Oh, you're into that sort of thing." And I was like, "Have you seen Akira?" And he's like, "No, it's Akira." And he just drilled it into my head, and he refused to let me pronounce it any other way. So I have to say Akira.
And that brings us to the whole idea of just where your fandom, kind of lies. And do you continue just calling it what you know it as, or do you actually give it that sort of respect and refer to it to its original title? It's all interlocked with the whole sub versus dub argument.
Yeah.
We talked about extremists early on. I know somebody who, if you do not say the correct names and terminology, he will grill you over it.
Well, it's like Ryu Ryu,
I kind of
it's like I don't love it any less. I consider it sacred. I love me some fucking Street Fighter, but I just say Ryu. That's what I've always said. That's probably the Mario, but Mario that even pisses me off. That one, when people just Mario. It's fucking Mario.
Mm-hmm.
Like that one even gets on my nerves.
no, it's kind of funny because I think the whole anime pronunciation is kind of an American thing, because if you go to Japan and you say Akira versus Akira, they're not going to care like what you pronounce it. They understand that like language is different. So I think it's more of an American thing where they're like, no man, you gotta say it this way, and it just kind of, to me, it just kind of feels very elitist in that mindset.
Yeah, and that's why I said, it really depends on your fandom. Do you really care how it's said, or does it matter to you? Perfect example, the same person that I know, one of my favorite series growing up was Cardcaptor Sakura. And if he heard anybody say Sakura, oh, he'd tear their damn head off. No, it's Sakura. It's blah, 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 blah. And it's like, you're not helping your cause trying to get people into watching this if you're going to tear them a new one for not knowing how to say it in the first place. Yeah.
And I think there's kind of a weird double standard for that, because if we go into the Pokemon side of things, you hear so many people calling it Kanto when it's supposed to be pronounced Kanto.
Kanto.
So why are you forgiving the Pokemon fans for calling it Kanto, but you're going to go after someone for mispronouncing Sakura or Sakura?
Exactly.
Well, I mean, I learned early on from that experience that they really take this stuff seriously, and the respect given to these titles. I mean, you can't deny, right? You can't deny the quality of the work. You can't deny the impact that it had. So I definitely got on board with trying to do the correct pronunciation. And I've been silent here. I've let you guys have the discussion because you definitely know more than me in this regard. And after Akira, my next foray into the anime space was mostly Dragon Ball Z.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, for some of the purists out there, I've had discussions about that as well, whether or not that counts or not. But which from my perspective, it most definitely does. But I have to give the respect, and honor due to the artist that made this sort of stuff happen, because it's a lot of work, it's a lot of thought gone into it, and respect due where it's earned.
Right.
Let me ask you guys all this. So, and kind of getting at least near to starting to wrap up here. What do you think the impact has been? Do you see where the impact was into like Hollywood movies, like live action movies? Do you see like the impact it had on that? Do you see the impact it had on other types of animation, maybe American animation, copying the stylings of it? What do you think, overall Japanese animation changed from then till now, and how did it impact movies and TV as we know it?
I definitely would say that I noticed it influencing American pop culture, because one of the biggest and best examples is the show Avatar: The Last Airbender. That
Right.
has got to be one of the most influential pieces of American anime, I guess you could say, American stylized anime that we have. And still has staying power,
Yep.
still has a heavy fan base even after all these years. Um,
And here's a fun fact about the Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you wanted to work on that show, you were literally forced to watch the entire OVA series of Fully Cooley, because that's where the animation was mainly inspired by. So like, you had to watch that OVA before you can work on Avatar.
Now, one thing that was discussed in our chat was this idea of adapting animes into live action films. Personally, I've seen a fair share of live action adaptations. Not all of them are good. Some of them I kind of like for their charm, not gonna lie. But we still haven't gotten to that point yet.
What about one that got a wide release? What about Scarlett Johansson, one of the actresses in Ghost in the Shell? I mean, that got a wide release. It got mixed reviews critically. I thought it was decent. How did you guys feel about that? How she did on that, and how they adapted it.
It was an okay movie.
It was okay. It was overhyped.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell is one of those movies that if you're going to do it, you need to wait longer for technology, because let's be honest, a lot of that movie could not be done with practical effects.
No.
Because in the animation, it was like very early CGI to do some of those effects. So it's like, you're not gonna translate it well no matter how hard you try.
Are there any other examples of that?
If you guys want,
another example I can think of off the top of my head is Battle Angel Alita that they did.
Good example. Good example.
Yeah.
Where they made that weird choice to deliberately CGI giant anime eyes onto the actress, and I was like, that just takes me so out of it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say
really
didn't eventually. I won't say that watching it enough times it didn't eventually grow a bit on me to accept it, but like out the gate, no, it was like a complete just pushed you out.
Let me ask you one more quick side question after saying that now. Was that Hollywood's taste test for American, maybe unfamiliar American audiences to see how well those did? And because maybe the lack of box office those did that result in us not getting many more after that?
Hollywood, no. Japanese, yes.
Yep.
And by that, I mean...
I think there was a time where it just... It kind of hit, where people were like, "Oh, we got to get on this bandwagon. We got to get with the anime stuff. We got to push this out. We got to do the live action."
It's the Fox Network Movie Network approach. We bought all these licenses. We need to do something with it, or we lose it.
Yeah.
It didn't quite hit. They put their best effort in for what they had at the time, and it it didn't satisfy because it wasn't what we knew as the source material, right? You know, the people who were aware as to where this came from and what the the origination of this stuff was. It didn't.
Well, the shame
It
in
didn't
that all to me, the
get there.
disappointment is look at the Marvel universe and look at all the great source material there, and look at just the same example. We have just as great as source material to work with, just as great as plot lines and character development. The potential to do live action, if done right with the right vision, with the right directors, is there, but maybe because of that. So, Josh, you think so? They did better in Japan. I didn't know about that. So
It wasn't Japan. The problem is Japan saw how numbers did. They own their properties. They want anything they make. They keep a very sharp eye on.
Yes.
So, like movies that they let happen in the American audience, because they look at when they make it themselves, like Godzilla films, why there was lulls. They want America to pick up and make and do things. But if they don't do a good thing with it, they won't let you make more.
So I'm gonna be controversial and say
they're very business by
the
the
Marvel
dollar
stuff
oriented.
is getting fucking tapped out, man. When we're making a fourth fucking Thor, it's getting tapped out, and I just wish this could be the arena we move into, with so many great properties. And like you're saying, though, they hold on to them so tightly. It's a shame because the potential is there to make phenomenal movies with phenomenal, storyline.
It's all ego, and it's who owns things. Like Marvel universes, we'll go in there for a minute. The cinematic motion live action universe, because there is an animated Marvel universe that actually they did animated film adaptations of some of the stuff.
Anime X.
But the problem is now that Disney owns a good chunk of where licenses were sitting, things people want to see, like, okay, you've now built this universe. Where's the X-Men? Where's Venom? Where's Spider-Man? Where's some of these big hitters? They're trying to overuse flagship builders. Like you said, we're getting like a fourth Thor movie. We're getting all these. We're getting too many sequels to things to be a ladder step to bring other things to build another giant Avenger-like movie.
Yeah.
It's like milking it out too much. Milking it out.
And the thing I want to bring up to you, Ryan, is that like for some anime, I just don't think it can be done in live action. Like there's just no way it can be done.
Maybe
like,
not yet, right?
If they
not
even
yet.
tried to do a live action Evangelion movie, it's just not going to work because Evangelion uses a lot of.
Do you think 10 years
has a ton of symbolism in that movie? No, it's not going to happen. I don't think a live action Evangelion will ever work.
It's too because there's a lot of religious undertones to it, and there's also a lot of.
I mean, it's not even just that. It's just. It's not even just that. There's just a ton of symbolism that's going on with Evangelion.
There's a lot of political shit that offends things. Like right now, a lot of how movies are getting done passes through the Chinese market, basically. And if they don't their system doesn't like it too much, we adjust, which kills a lot of shit for Evangelion.
Also, we need
to... especially when they start to get into like the end of Evangelion stuff, because that just goes bonkers.
Yeah,
that shit just fucking goes out there.
But also, I think we need to bring up the point that what they accomplish in animes and manga artistically just can't be replicated live action. They can't replicate.
And there's proof of this.
And no, should it be?
In America,
they shouldn't even try.
In America, we got a Dragon Ball live action movie, and honestly, that just can't be done.
No.
I'm sorry. You can have as much technology as you want. It's just it can't be done. I don't even understand why they even tried.
I can't have a whitewashed cast like that. No. I said it.
And like in the Japanese side, like they made a live action version of Full Metal Alchemist, and that was a huge failure.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hit and miss in what the material allows everyone to put their little spin on it. An example of a modern series, which, hot take, people, I'm sorry if you're a huge fan of this. A rare example to me is the Bleach stuff. Like, the anime, I love way more than I give a shit about the manga. And what's funny is some of my favorite freaking stories in Bleach's anime are fucking filler arcs, which means they're not even official in the manga, graphic novel, comic, whatever you want to call it. They were done because they needed more time. They were either too far ahead or too caught up and waiting for more material to do an actual arc that is from the source material, which I found hilarious. But it's things like that do happen. The problem is when you go transferring something that's been established really well to a live action, there's Western tastes. Everybody's got to have their own creative input of what they believe. So most anime films or comics or whatever probably will never ever be as good as the original source material if you live action it.
I just think that
No,
there's
I do want to say that there are some good examples of live action anime. American wise, and this is a hot take, but I felt that the Cowboy Bebop live action was a good show. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I thought it was a pretty good show for what it was.
I haven't seen it.
I don't think it made they got to air very much of it, and I think it's already been pulled down from Netflix, which was kind of sad.
It's unfortunate, but
wow, they removed it.
But I think from what they had, there was a ton of potential.
They actually removed the show.
I don't know if it was they removed it for any major reason other than it just they let it cycle out and they didn't put it back up.
Wow.
So unfortunately, with that is ratings wise, it just didn't do as well compared to other things that was going on at the time, and Netflix kind of saw it as like the show just wasn't good. But I mean, I just think not a lot of people watched it when it was coming out.
It had a huge problem, and one of those major problems was it was something that was promised for so long that people just got sick of hearing about it. Nobody cared anymore. And then they showed reveals of like the actors they picked, and people like getting whatever shade of the rainbow you want to call it, washing of a character that they didn't agree with, so they didn't watch it.
You know, I'd really like to see statistics, just because of my curiosity, on specifically the American audiences and how they've grown, especially since the 2000s till now, with regards to Japanese animation. I'd like to know the numbers of, like, you know, how much more people consume it, stream it, buy it, and the age ranges. I think that would be very fascinating to look at, because I feel like it was definitely so much of us that were younger when it came out, but I would be interested if, like, you know, does it go to like teenage up to people in their 40s or 50s, or, you know, what is it? I'd be interested in seeing that. As far as tracking growth, you know?
Well, for streaming services, you have two major things. If you want to give them money that for legit reasons, or you just don't try to find it, somebody pirated it up onto their YouTube, or you torrent it, or whatever you may do. Crunchyroll is pretty good, but if you don't want their big thing is their premium monthly service, where one, you don't get ads in the episode, and you don't have to wait some time frame for another episode. You get like pretty much damn near full access.
It's usually you gotta wait a week before you get the newest episode.
Well,
let me ask you this, completely left field. Is there a good company? Because I've seen these on Amazon. Is there a cool way to get affordably imported Japanese snacks in like a box? Like,
don't waste your time.
Oh yeah,
don't waste your time.
They have those subscription boxes, but it's really not worth it.
Yeah,
there are a few out there.
And In my area, there is a few Japanese candy stores, and they got a bunch of really cool imported Japanese snacks.
It's basically an upcharge where you're basically just paying for however it comes, whatever elements it's exposed to. Too bad. That's how you get it. And they usually charge up, and there's usually tier list variety. It's never exactly what they're promising you in the photo to get you to check it out. And you're usually better off just going to an international marketplace and buying the shit to try for way cheaper.
I would agree. And if you don't have like they call them usually like Asian markets or something of that caliber. If you don't have anything like that in your neighborhoods, try checking out world markets if you have them, because that's another source for international snacks that's been really good lately.
I mean, they're around. You can find them.
Yeah, and a lot of places that you wouldn't expect are starting to carry that kind of stuff, because now they're seeing, hey, if we can't sell our other stuff, well, maybe we can sell some bottles of ramune, or what, like Taki or whatever, or not Taki, Pocky. All these recognizable treats by kids and by teens who are into anime. So never hurts to even check your local grocery store too for a lot of that.
Nice.
The one thing I will tell you, if you can find it, that's worth trying out: the green tea Kit Kats. Those things kick ass.
Oh, those are good.
Oh yeah,
those are really good.
They have tons of flavors. They have some crazy flavors in Japan. It's nuts.
Sure do. They sure do.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because in Japanese, Kit Kat means good luck. So in Japan, one of the traditions for Valentine's Day is the female will give the male chocolate, and it's usually Kit Kats, and it just means good luck.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even bother with the original tradition of making them themselves anymore.
I mean, why do that?
Yeah.
Well, the idea is it's supposed to be more significant interest. It's supposed to be a show of your culinary skills.
So I kind of want to round up the show with some thoughts from JChip on what the anime scene is like for him, and where he thinks it's possibly going to go, because most of us here, whether we're hardcore or not, we're kind of like the OG anime fans. We were there when anime was getting its feet wet, wasn't widely known. So JChip, I'd like to end the show with your thoughts on what the anime boom has been for you, and kind of where you think it's gonna go in the next coming years, where what you grew up with might be considered OG, and what you think the future of anime is pretty much going to be like, in your opinion.
So before I answer that, I kind of want to give a general understanding of where I'm coming from and how I got into anime. As I mentioned, I was born in 1997, so I literally came out of my mom's womb listening to the Pokemon theme. And funny enough, that was the first anime I ever watched. And I didn't think it was anything different from like Cow and Chicken or whatever cartoon I was watching at the time. So I just thought it was general cartoons. And my brother had a bunch of anime VHSs, and one time when I was like 6 years old, I had a really massive toothache, and he just puts on Ninja Scroll. And that was a pretty interesting time, especially for a kid that age. But by the time I hit like teenage years is when I started to understand what anime was. I got really big into Yu-Gi-Oh! That was my favorite anime as a kid. I collected the cards, and I still play to this very day. And then when Toonami came back, I remember watching an episode of Soul Eater, and that's how I kind of got hooked into checking out everything from the new stuff that was coming out to the old stuff from like the early 70s and early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm keeping up with a lot of new anime nowadays. I check out the seasonal charts, seeing what's interesting, and I think I think the thing with anime nowadays is that I think we're kind of getting to a point where there's too much of it.
Oversaturation.
Yeah, and Hideki Anno, uh, the director for Evangelion, brought up a point that we might see an anime crash just because of the amount of shows that are coming out, and I could see that happening. American-wise, I think anime is still becoming more and more popular, but it's still not there in the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can go to your Walmart and you can see like merch for My Hero Academia or Demon Slayer, but you're probably not going to go down to your neighborhood and see average Joe talking about the next episode of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Yeah.
Maybe not where you're at.
Maybe.
I hear that a lot lately in my area, but hey, different strokes there.
Maybe, but again, try not to generalize here, but in the grand scheme of things, it is getting more popular here in America, but I don't think it's going to be as mainstream yet, but I do think it will at some point.
So let me ask you this, JChip. Do you feel that we were fortunate to catch the anime boom when it wasn't an oversaturation? Do you feel that there being an oversaturation is better, or are you kind of in between?
I'm kind of in between. Now, I do think you guys were lucky to get whatever anime that was coming out from the 80s, just because back in the 80s, they definitely had to work hard to make that stuff. Like, you guys got to understand, like, back in the day, it was the Wild West. And if your show failed, your studio would have gone under and there would have been no coming back. So, like, you had to succeed. And everything that was made from the 80s was top tier quality. Like, there was no excuses for failure. Like, there was no cutting corners. They had to do everything they can just to get a good amount of money to make the next show.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And nowadays, there's more money being put into it, and a good thing is that a lot of the workers, the animators, are getting paid better, which is always a good thing. But I feel like, when the more you get, the more mediocre it becomes.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely think that maybe we need to kind of step back and not make as many anime nowadays. I think there needs to be a right number. Who knows what that number is, but as of right now, I'm just riding the wave and hope it doesn't crash anytime soon.
Now, have you noticed from your age demographic and your levels of fandom, have you noticed there have been more of the younger fans going back and checking out anime of the 80s? Do you see fans of our age group looking at newer stuff like JoJo's Bizarre or My Hero Academia? Do you notice if there's like kind of like a role reversal with the demographics at all?
I think so. I think there is some kind of curiosity to some anime fans who start from when I was growing up, who maybe are curious to check out some of the older stuff that they just find interesting.
Mm-hmm. Because you tend to share a lot of pictures.
But I also think.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you tend to.
I was.
You talk.
Okay. As I was saying, I think there is a bunch of people that will probably check out what was made in the past, but you also have a bunch of anime fans that are stuck in the FOMO. They want to talk to their friends about the latest episode of Attack on Titan or My Hero Academia, so they're mainly focused on what's coming out right now, so they can be in the current conversation.
Gotcha. Because I'm kind of in the same category where a lot of newer series don't really interest me or thrill me, but some do because of the art and the storytelling. Like I do like Attack on Titan. I do not like where the last season is going, but up until that point I was hooked on it, and that was one of the newer programs that actually got me interested in something new because I wasn't following any anime booms after Yu-Gi-Oh. I myself was into the series. I played the card games. I was at the tourney scene. Um, but I found myself being less and less interested in newer content. So I'm always curious about where, kind of like with gaming and movies, I'm curious to see where the younger generations are showing their interest. If they're only looking forward to what's new, like you said, so that they can be part of the conversation, be a part of the trend, or if they're actually saying, "Yeah, I like my stuff, but I'm gonna go back and see what all this other stuff is about that other people are saying." So I'm wondering if anime
Yep.
has that
And
same approach.
that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I think there is some good stuff coming out today. Like recently, there's a new anime coming out called Spy Family.
Mm-hmm.
I've been reading the manga before that anime came out, and it is fantastic. I love that I can check out a manga that's being made in Japan, and I can get that easily. Like I can read the newest chapter of One Piece every Sunday, and before it becomes animated. And I just love that that a lot of manga are now getting more exposure just because it's easy to access.
Right. I wish they would finish translating Lycanthrope Leo because I loved that series, but we only got up to I think 7 or 9 Viz comics and maybe one collection of all of those put together. We didn't get the rest of it translated because somebody in the right department said this manga's too violent and we need to stop translating it. So that kind of
Right.
pissed me off, but I see the appeal of being able to read the manga and enjoy the story before it gets turned into an
Look, Zombie,
anime show.
real quick here. Let me tell you something. At least they didn't do what Funimation did, which is they picked up the rights to anime and release it. The Interspecies Reviewer manga, which is a very mature Monster Girl manga.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically about fantasy world pervs going to the red light district with monster girls and reviewing the experiences in their businesses. They apparently didn't do their homework and pay attention, and then went, oh shit, after they released like 1 or 2 episodes on their streaming platform, and then went, oh shit, yanked it off and dropped the rights, and somebody else picked it up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was just completely stupid on their part because, first of all, what standards are they talking about? They've been releasing stuff like this nonstop. And if they wanted to keep it less risque, there was a censored version that they could have released. So I don't understand why they did that. It's just a case of them wasting their money to get a quick buck.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. It happens.
Phil has a question for you, JChip. He says, thoughts on 7 Deadly Sins?
7 Deadly Sins was pretty good. It was the manga that I read because Bleach sadly ended, and I needed a new shonen to kind of fill that void. So I was reading 7 Deadly Sins before it came onto Netflix, and it's a pretty cool show. I do think it kind of falls off towards the later half, but overall, it's enjoyable.
Cool.
Yeah, my only problem with 7 Deadly Sins was there's a series, it's called, and a zombie actually asked me in my stream because I have a clip of it as a background that runs in my chat stage on my stream. There's it's called 7 Mortal Sins here because they couldn't use the 7 Deadly Sins, but
Right.
It's basically that, and what's funny is I think it was Funimation that released it out here, or it was Sentai Filmworks, but But that one's way more risque a bit of what they show than what, like you said, they could censor. But I think when it came to interspecies reviewer, since I'm going to double back here real quick, is there were moe type bodies that they were showing exposed in compromised positions, and that's where they had a problem, is that it looked too childlike and could be misinterpreted. So that's why they dropped it.
And with that, again, like I still have to wonder what kind of standards do they have, because they've shown that in the past before. There's literally an anime, and I can't remember its name, but it's kind of like Soul Eater, where the friends turns into weapons and you can use them in battle. But in order for you to use them as a weapon, you have to make them aroused. And a lot of them look very young, and I get it. Japan has different sex laws. The age of consent in Japan is 13. I get that.
I know what you're talking about.
With Funimation being okay with that,
like Lolly.
with Funimation being okay with that, why did they decide to bat an eye to interspecies reviewers? I just don't understand where they're coming from.
I can't. I know the weapon one you're talking about, and I can't remember. Valkyrie Drive.
Yep, that one.
That's the one you're thinking of. And the anime they actually did was Valkyrie Drive Mermaid, I think it was. And that one, and what's funny is that's based off of an Euro video game series, which I thought was freaking hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
And it walks that line like it could almost be a hentai. It's like that close.
Right. So.
Yeah, and Funimation got the rights, and they dubbed the entire show.
I know they did, which I thought was amazing and funny at the same time.
So again, we touch upon the subject of just how vast and how many varieties of anime there are in today's world, in today's fan base. Again, we may have gotten hints of that in the early 80s, but again, it's not as... the genres haven't exploded like they have over the last couple of years. So again, you're finding those that, well, if this doesn't appeal to you, maybe this will, kind of approach. And while it may be taboo in some places or with some people to like animes that step into those subgenres, you know, I don't know if that again is a good thing or a bad thing because of the saturation, but definitely shows how we've progressed in, you know, the last 30, 40 years, maybe 50, depending on how far back you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely what I've been enjoying with this discussion and the discussions that are booming in chat is, for the most part, we all seem to gravitate towards certain series. We all have our favorites. We all have ones that either we know and don't like, or are just completely outside of what we enjoy anime wise anyway, but we know of them. And it's just really cool to see how unifying anime has also become, whereas back in the day it kind of, you know, it kind of pushed you away from other people because either they didn't know what anime was, or they just treated it as another nerdy thing to be into, like, you know, the D&D crowds of the 70s and the 80s. So whether you are a fan of the saturation or not, it is really cool to see how we've got, just like with retro gaming, we've got many different age groups, many different generations who are still coming together, enjoying what we consider classics, enjoying what we consider new age anime, and just being able to come together and talk about that. So I definitely have enjoyed today's episode. And JChip, thank you very much for providing your insight. Because when you post pictures in Discord of either your anime collection or some of the things you pick up, I know there's an age difference with you and the rest of us, just like there's different levels of anime fandom among all of us. It's really cool from my perspective to see younger generations getting into what got anime started in the first place here. So I definitely like that, and I appreciate that, because with the way the fandoms are nowadays, it's nice when people can go back and appreciate where it all started. Now, you don't have to go back to like the 50s and 60s and watch, that stuff. But even if you do and you enjoy it, more power to you. Because I love black and white 8-man, but I loved the OVA or OAV, however you say it, remake as
OVA.
well. So I've liked the transitions that some of the older series have gone through and have been readapted into not only new anime styles, but also we're starting to see more anime games appearing on consoles. We finally got an updated Fist of the North Star game on PS3.
I gotta stream that sometime, but that's gonna be a minute.
They finally released a Saint Seiya game. So there's all these nods to older animes that are finally being brought into popular culture, and now newer generations get to enjoy the new version. But then also sometimes, if we're lucky, they peek back at what the original style was like, and I can't stress enough how cool that is. I know that every generation's going to be different. All of our tastes are going to be different, but it's really cool when younger generations pay respect to the older stuff, and at the same time, us OG fans can take a look at what's new and kind of see where it's at and say, you know what, I like this. I think this is good. Because we could sit here for days and exchange titles. We could sit here for days and host these in Discord, which I'm all for, and have like anime parties and whatnot. But overall, I think that anime, just like everything else, has a very unifying effect. And whether you're hardcore or not, it's just really cool to see how many of us either enjoyed it or still enjoy it to this day, and we can sit here and talk about it. So,
this is awesome. I love doing this.
I think the level of fandom is what makes this conversation interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Ryan mentioned he kind of phased out as he started focusing more on music, but he shows that he had an investment in it early on. And
yeah, big time.
That's okay. Not everybody stays interested in anime. Some of us have mentioned being burnt out after some time and kind of re-emerging in the scene. I think that's okay. It's just cool to see where we all kind of got started with it, how similar all of us got our exposure to it, and then just kind of, whether you still like it or not, we still have our favorites. We could still sit there and watch them like the good old days, and either make fun of dubs, make fun of subbed, whatever you want to do. Just kick back and watch some of our favorites and appreciate them for what they are.
And I've been dropping their links for all of our consistent viewers to sub, but here's another time.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you're gonna subscribe to JChip's channel and Josh's channel,
both of
and
which
in their videos.
Both of which are also in this video's description. Also, if you're not familiar with him, I want to drop a link to a friend of mine's channel. Maybe some of you know him. But Sarumaru does a great live stream. Always talks about Japanese pop culture. He's an artist. He's a gamer. Totally into the anime scene. Highly recommend checking out his channel if you're really into anime. He's a real good guy. Him and Jesse do an awesome show, and I've been a fan of his channel for a very long time, so definitely check him out if you like anime and all things anime, because that's all they talk about most of the time. And I'm going to drop one more channel link for those of you who are Five Nights at Freddy's fans. This is my buddy Arctic the Crazy. He's just getting his channel started, but off to a great start. Does some live plays and whatnot. Be sure to show him some support if you're interested in that. And anybody have any closing statements? Anything that you guys want to share before we kind of sign off for the night?
Okay. I got one. Just a reminder, you can find Zombie and myself as lovable characters, Zommu and Josh Shadow, on the Pokemon Artcast on this channel. We're bi-weekly Mondays.
Yes,
I'm
we
not
are.
sure what Monday we're starting with. You'll have to talk to the Mew about that. But thanks for having me. It's been fun. I could see you coming back here and talking about more of this. Oof. Because there was plenty to be said that didn't get said. I can say that much.
Right. Maybe what we can do is we can all. Maybe what we could do is we could do like a top 10. And kind of narrow it down.
What are the five that you think have to be absolutely seen to be a true fan?
Right. I mean, we've talked about some of our similar. We've talked about some of our similar interests here. Now I'm interested to see kind of where we differ. So I think that would make for, a fun topic. But yeah, thank you, Josh, for being here, my supernatural bro, and hopefully we will be back with the Pokemon Artcast. I want to say this upcoming Monday. We try not to do it when Nick, Mike, and Mr. M are doing their retro podcast, because we don't want to overlap with them. Plus, they are awesome to watch as well. If anybody wants to drop Nick's channel too while we still have time, Geeks with Cash, their podcast is just as fun to watch, so definitely check them out. So we try to do alternate Mondays so we don't overlap with them. But JChip, anything you want to add? Any recommendations you want to make? Anything like that?
Yeah, there's a couple. First of all, just a cheap little plug. I do anime reviews, so if you found my commentary on some anime to be interesting, definitely check over to my channel. I review anime pretty consistently.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this was a really fun podcast, and there's a ton of stuff that was not brought up that hopefully we can do an anime part 2 and definitely discuss more, because we can talk about this literally for hours. So yeah, I had a lot of fun, and thank you so much for letting me come out here and talk about all this stuff.
Definitely, we could put an anime discussion part 2 on the polls if you guys, and if you listening in the audience are interested in that. We've done a few part 2, part 3 episodes already, so I don't see the harm in doing that. Yeah, I feel that there was more we could have gone into, and if we want to scratch the surface of even more adult themed anime,
yeah, I'm fine not touching the hentai area. I don't need to be put on a list there. I'm good.
Yeah. If we're daring enough to, and if I don't get my channel removed discussing it, that's something maybe we can consider. But with all of us being fans of anime, I'm sure there's so many other topics we can look into. So if that's something that you all are interested in, be sure to voice your opinion in the Discord. Also in the comments section of this episode once it uploads, because we do take your suggestions And we always put them to a weekly poll. Whatever ends up being the highest amount is the topic of the week. So, yeah, definitely express what you're interested in, what you guys would like to hear. We had a great episode tonight. Again, thank you for our guests for joining us today. Ryan, BFG, anything you want to add?
I was gonna say, obsessed with Japan ever since I was a kid. I always wanted to go to Tokyo. It's a shame it's fucking 20-hour plane ride away, because I would have found it to make it there. But yeah, I'd be interested in just talking about Japanese culture in general, whether it's about how they video game over there, and all the companies over there that put out games, and obviously with Sony over there, and and just the stores. They got such cool stores, arcades, you know and if we dealt with it from both like a anime and video game discussion, just everything there. um yeah, I'm fascinated with Tokyo as a city, the food, the culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's all incredible, and the technology over there. So it goes further than just anime, movies, and comics and video games. It's everything wrapped around it. So yeah, just a fan overall of Japan.
I guess I'd have to get in contact with Saru and see if he and Jesse could join us then for that, because they've had the exposure, which is why I love their channel, and they love to share what it's like, the culture clash of everything and all the food and all that. So I'll have to get in touch with them and see if that's something they could touch upon for an episode. Because
Yeah, I literally watch like 4K walkthroughs where like people just walk with a camera through Tokyo,
yeah,
and I'm like, they're just like amazed. I'm like, it just how that city even exists, and how
mm-hmm.
it's so elaborate in the architecture and the restaurants and the neon color, everything about it. It's like another world, isn't it? I mean, it even goes above and beyond what even New York City is. It's like on a different level.
Right. Well, again, that's a topic that we can post in the polls, and whether we have Saru join us as a guest for that or not, I'd still think that'd be a fun topic to kind of
Oh yeah,
gauge, because if we're not just looking at anime as a cultural influence, then there are definitely other elements of Japanese culture that have been influencing America, or at least people are adapting to those cultures and bringing them here. So I could see that being another good topic of discussion. BFG, anything you want to comment? If you're still with us, good sir. I'm guessing he has signed off. Sayonara. Well, maybe we'll get a final word from him near or in Discord or so. um, but yeah, this has been a lot of fun. This is definitely a great topic. I'm glad that you guys all voted on it. I'm glad that our guests were here, providing their insight and experiences. It's been fun. So
it was too good to lose. I mean, MTV check, Sci-Fi Channel check, Anime check.
right.
I mean, who wouldn't sign up for that?
Exactly. And I'm sure a lot of us, not just hosting, but a lot of us listening probably had those same experiences. So, but that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you all for being here. Again, thank you, guests. It's been a blast talking with you all and sharing your insights and opinions. Thank you all in the chat for keeping the chat popping with opinions, questions. You all know that we love that stuff. And be on the lookout for the poll coming up soon. I'm going to try to get that done as soon as I can. Hopefully I won't be canceling any other episodes due to illnesses, because being on bed rest for the last 2 weeks sucked, and I missed this. I missed the community, so I'm glad to be back. And as always, if you guys want to hang out for the after party, I'll be opening up Discord as soon as we conclude with the episode. Feel free to chat with us there, talk about what you liked about today's episode, make suggestions, all that good stuff, because we love hearing it. So, with that being established, I am your patient Zero, Zombie JLT1.
I am Retro Ryan.
BFG has gone bye-bye. And of course, our awesome guests.
JoshxZeroify, I must
I am
wave.
JChip.
God damn it. Go ahead, JChip.
Sorry.
Go for it, man.
I am JChip Show.
I will restart my statement as I am your supernatural phantasmal gamer that's been haunting this particular retroactive trio cast and must away back to the digital graveyard, JoshxZeroify. And no, I'm not doing the evil laugh. Sorry.
And thank you all for another awesome retroactive trio podcast. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. We'll see you all in the Discord. And as always, enjoy that ending. Thank you all very much.